So it seems GB News bunged off a hard left person the other day that was screeching away because this is Michael Crick, who was accusing GB News of being or having a right-wing bias, which he found wholly unacceptable. Now, I believe that the news channels are meant to be non-biased, but we know that's not the case, all right? I don't think I know of a news channel that doesn't have a certain leaning, and certainly within... when I've talked to smaller reporters, their editor will tell them to go out and find the story to back up the narrative. And I was gobsmacked at that because I believe in telling the truth. As much as you find, tell what you see, kind of thing. I can put my own opinion to it, but I would never go that, say, for instance, Michael Crick has done something that he hasn't, because that would be wholly unfair and not right, by the way. But this furious GB News producer kicked journalist Michael Crick out of the studio after accusing channel of right-wing bias during free speech debate. I think he was shouting quite a bit and talking over people and all the rest of it. And from what I can gather, Neil Oliver went into a commercial break. However, is he right? Is he wrong? Now, free speech. That's a joke, by the way. We don't have free speech. There is no such thing as free speech, because if it is, you could call people racist names. You could ask for acts of violence. You could do all sorts of things if there was true free speech. There's not. There's freedom of expression in this country, and that's about as ambiguous as you can get. So basically, what they should have said is an open and frank debate. That probably would have been fairer. Whatever. So the veteran journalist, Michael Crick, has said he was expelled from GB News studio after claiming the channel was biased right-wing during a debate on free speech. The 65-year-old founder member of Channel 4 News in 82 also repeated his suggestion that Ofcom should shut down the broadcaster. Fair enough, if that's your opinion. But if you're going to ask Ofcom to shut down news channels on their bias, then you'd have to go to the BBC and get them fired off, because they're clearly left-wing. On the BBC Two, ITV. What about Sky News UK? Because obviously Sky News Australia isn't left-wing, or at least it doesn't come across as it. But whatever. Why is it, if it's left-wing, it gets a pass, and if it's right-wing, it must be crushed? Oh yeah, that's like Marxist socialist sort of behaviour, isn't it? You go along with what we say, or we will ruin it. And it seems, like many other things in this world that I'm noticing a lot more these days, that if it goes unchallenged, the system won't do anything about it, because the system, like the police or whatever else, just want a quiet life. And many people in these positions, in, say, for instance, media, Ofcom, politics, civil servants, I could go on, are massively left-leaning. And there was a reason for this. During the last 30 years, the left have got together to make sure that when a position comes available, they'll get their friends in there if it's possible. Much like Common Purpose, I talked about this in previous videos, so I won't do it again. However, yet again, what they like to do is control the narrative, because that then controls you. Because people generally, for the most part, in the old days at least, used to believe what they heard or what they saw or what they read. The old days, you would see people queuing up to get a paper in the morning. They'd have their particular paper. Some would get the Sun for obvious reasons, or the Sport for more of the Sun reasons, right? Some of them would get the Guardian. Some of them would get other papers. So it really depended on what you wanted, whether you wanted to find out what the financial scene was, say, for instance, within the city, if you wanted to go more into worldwide news. But you would usually find that certain papers had a certain bias. So right-wing papers were called rags, okay, and left-wing papers were called for the intellectuals. It seemed that way anyway. Now, this guy himself has written books about the Labour Party. There's a few, actually. One, I think, was called something Militant, okay, and that was on about the rise of militancy within the Labour Party and its successfulness, if that's a word. However, when you deal with a person who is to the left, okay, who's used to having their say, and also used to getting their way, and believes in their own politics, and feels that they're on a right-wing, politically orientated news channel, if you want, and also he's got issue with people who are in positions of politics at the moment that get to present. He says it's a dangerous thing. Is it? Possibly, yes. You should, I believe, have completely neutral news channels so that they don't lean left or lean right. But that's fairy tale stuff. You can't have that because every person has their political beliefs. And also editors and people like that. And the other people, higher up, these people have their political leanings. When I spoke to people who used to do reporting for a certain right-wing online YouTube organization from Canada, they told me that the person said, here's the story I want you to find to fit this narrative. Go and find it. Don't report on anything else. And I was shocked because that was the right wing. Right wing are supposed to be honest. Well, they're fucking not. I can tell you now. There's so many people on the right that will lie like fuck to you. Why? You'd have to ask them. Some will be controlled. Some will be paid. Some will have their own agenda. But it is what it is. And it's very disappointing because we're all too quick to throw accusations at the left. But we are guilty of those accusations ourselves. But this guy, he's no slouch. He understands the game. He's been in politics and he's been in correspondence to people like, I don't know, news places over in America. He's been on and around the scene for a long time. Now, the fact that he's thrown such a fit at GB News for being right-wing, I mean, how does he feel when he sees, say, for instance, a right-wing person go on to Question Time, for instance, and get lambasted by a ragged bunch of far-left nutters on the panel and the audience, which has been handpicked? Does he feel that's a good thing? Does he feel that's open and honest, TV? Does he think that the right-wing person deserved it because they're right-wing? And it does seem like this, that if you hold a different view, say, for instance, there's people on the right, they'll look at people on the left. This is the further round the horseshoe you get, the more the same they become, which is interesting. But if you've got the far right or the far left, they won't accept anything the other side says, and everything that comes out of their mouth is a complete lie. The further up to the middle of the horseshoe you get, the more they will listen to each other and sometimes accept what the other person's saying if it's based in fact. But as I say, there are many people that are further on around the horseshoe to the point that it almost meets that will not allow anything from the other side to speak because it's a threat to their power, a threat to their control, a threat to their position. But also another thing that I find that is interesting that a lot of people do on both sides, but a lot more to the left, it seems, is that their way to win an argument is to shout over you so you can't be heard. Well, that's not winning an argument, is it? That, to me, is just screeching. But there it is. Do you think that he's right? Do you think the GB News are right-wing? Personally, I do. I believe they are. Not as right-wing as I'd like them to, but I believe they are. But I believe that's okay. I really do, because at the end of the day, there's so many left-wing biased channels that we need something to the right so that we compare. There's news aggregators out there that I go to. I think it's Ground News. And they will give you all the different news stories from all the different papers, left, right, leaning, and all the rest of it. And they will give you underneath, it was a left-wing perspective, or it's a centrist perspective, or it's a right-wing perspective. And it's great to look at all the stories and see how each side see it from their perspective. Now, if we don't have right-wing news channels as well as all the left-wing ones, we can't do that. So I still think that it's a good thing. And I think that, if Ofcom would or are to go after GB News, then fine. Then go after all the old historically set in concrete left-wing news aggregators, BBC, and then go through some of the papers as well and have a look at them. But they won't, because like many things, the left screech and cause trouble, all right? They're good at it. And they're very organised as well, whereas the right wing aren't organised. Not at all. And it seems in the past that many lefties would get together with many other organisations and they would screech that if you didn't do what they wanted, they would boycott you, or they would slur you as a racist or a homophobe, xenophobe, bigot, of all sorts. Pick your name, right? And people started to pander to them because it was easier than having the shit fallout that came after you upset one of their delicate little feelings. Now it seems that things are starting to go the other way. People that you couldn't talk about before, the left are slagging off. And yet the left were all too quick to call us names. What was it they called us? Well, apart from all the names, and I'm really struggling now. Anti-Semitic, that was the one. You're all too quick to throw that around when they want to shut you down if you question anything. But then all of a sudden, they're doing some really, really terrible things that you could call anti-Semitic. But it's all right when they do it, but not when we do it. Well, I suppose to be anti-Semitic truly is never all right. But to question somebody because they're being dodgy or what they're doing on the world stage is wrong isn't anti-Semitic. But it seems nowadays that people are getting the left. They will pick a topic for now and they'll be extreme about it and then they'll drop it and they'll move on to the next thing. But they cause trouble wherever they go. And it's a shame. And maybe it's not the traditional left. Maybe it's now the woke, which is now a religion, by the way. The religion of wokeism, or the Church of the Woke, is quite a cult. And it's all-encompassing for these brain-dead fucktards, but whatever. Anyway, look, I'm going to get on to the next story. Let me know what you think of the content coming out. Do I need to go in any direction in your view? Should I change things? Would you like to see a screen behind me with some sort of rev writing, or are you happy with the lounge look in the state it is? Let me know. I like to know in the comments, all right? I take what you say important because you're the viewer. There it is. Anyway, take it steady. I'll see you in a bit.